reach out to the Marine.
I had a rash like that
We're back.
too.
Keep on.
I know what you need to do with that rash. I'm sorry. Are we on the air?
No, I think I agree. This isn't a free market.
Dr. Heiser. What do we have here? Dr. Moe, Dr. Larry, Dr. Curley?
Doctors, not Progressive Soup there.
Progressive Soup, okay. Are we on the doctor show or the Progressive Soup? Or where's the cat?
Well, Basil's around somewhere, and Bill Murray's up in the hammock still from
he's
Basil's show.
He's beyond the beyond.
Well, we've gone through national politics. Let's swing back, and I know it's not going to be as fun for you talking about state politics. But it is what it is. But before we get to that, I noted, and I'm not sure if it's true, but I read it in enough places, so I kind of have a sense that it's correct, that if you look at the electorate, people that have voting rights, people that are voters, pretty much half white, half non-white, pretty much similar.
We're talking about the state of Connecticut now, or
nationwide?
Okay.
Nationwide, about half and half.
Yeah,
might be a little bit more white than black, but it's white than black and Hispanic and Chinese, and the other non-whites.
Asians,
yeah. And you have about half of white voters are men, and about half of them are women. Fair enough.
Funny how that works out. But
yeah, there you go. It's not exactly that, but I think it's a fair presumption that that's about right.
Right.
Now, in the election we just had nationwide, you would think if that were the case, then 50% white, that about 25% of the overall voting population would be white men. Does that make sense?
It does. I wasn't good at story problems, but I think I'm with you. If a train leaves New York heading east, and then a train leaves San Francisco, they would meet with 25% white men. Yes,
okay. So I read, and I'd like the audience to check this out because I don't want to be saying something that's not correct, but I think I read it enough places that it seems to be correct, that not 25, which is the white male representation of the overall 100%, but 75% of the people that cast ballots in America in 2014 were white men.
75%.
75%, not 25, which would make sense, not 50%, which would be overly.
I think let's just stipulate that there's a higher percentage of white men that actually get out and vote.
And if so,
I don't know, 75% seems a bit high, but
it seems wildly high. But I've read enough places. I read that that's the case.
Right.
That I looked at it and I said, "Wow, what would cause that to be the case? What motivated white men to come to the polls in greater percentages of their subgroup than everybody else?
They are incredibly ticked off. That would be one.
As opposed to women and minorities?
They're not ticked off?
The funny thing is,
I don't know. I think they'd be pretty ticked off too.
Barack Obama, since the election, and I guess this is an accurate number, 2/3 of the registered voters did not come out and vote.
That's typical, yeah.
2/3. And he said, well, I just want everyone to know that, I got the worst. I got, slaughtered. My party got slaughtered. Yeah. I made sure everyone knew not only I wasn't on the ballot, but my policies were. I reiterated that. I wanted to make sure that everyone understood.
He acknowledged that, although I don't think Bush acknowledged that in 2006. That was the case.
Now we have more Republicans in the Congress than we've had since World War II. Yeah. I mean, this is rather epic.
During Harry Truman's administration, I think that the Republicans held the size of, and it goes back and forth. There have been. And we could talk briefly about, if you wouldn't mind, about gerrymandering, where state legislatures rewrite congressional districts, not necessarily for one party or the other, but they rewrite congressional districts to protect incumbents.
You want to know what happened last night?
Of either party. They protect incumbents. Except for Allen West. Except for Allen West, who got his district rewritten by a Republican legislature because they didn't like Allen West, even though he's a pretty decent guy.
You're kidding, so it goes the other way too. Imagine that.
It's sort of like it's sort of like they do for incumbents normally.
Last night, my beloved Chicago Bears got destroyed by the Green Bay Packers in a football game.
Oh my God!
As a Bears fan, I can't sit here and go, well, they lost whatever it was, 56-14. But there was this play where the ref called holding, and I don't think that was holding. I think that wasn't quite right.
Which didn't turn the game.
The Democratic Party has just been handed an epic butt kicking. And you're coming back and going, wait a minute, some of these districts are gerrymandered. Hey, wait a minute.
What are Republicans?
A lot of white men voted. And
Were you a Republican?
Funny thing is, the leader of your party, Barack Obama, is doing the same thing.
Were you a
He's
Republican
saying,
in 2006?
I'm listening to those 2/3 of the electorate that didn't vote. Because if they would
have some popcorn.
If they would have, I'm sure they would have voted for me.
Grab a handful of popcorn.
Which is quite an assumption.
It's delicious.
No, maybe women.
What did you say as a Republican in 2006? Where exactly the same thing happened in reverse, where we had an unpopular president. We're talking about this off camera before we came on.
Right.
You had a very unpopular president, much more unpopular than Barack Obama. George Bush was at 35% for the last 3 years of administration. In 2006, you had kind of the same thing in reverse. The Democrats gained a huge plurality in the Senate. They retook the House by a fair number.
Right.
But they grabbed almost a 60-vote plurality in the Senate. And all the Republican candidates running that year, when George W. Bush, the incumbent, who was unpopular, wanted to stump for people, basically they all said, oh, stay away.
Yeah,
it's the same thing in reverse, isn't it? So this is not a phenomenon that happens. This is not a first time this has ever happened. It happens a lot. It happens. You know, you could bring up 2006 as an example of where it happened. If this was a tidal wave in 2014, what the heck was 2006 against the Republicans? It was a tidal wave and a Sharknado combined.
Okay.
Well, we were just talking before about the
and it could happen again in the other direction.
You know,
that's democracy. It's a kind of a bit of a pendulism, and at the end of the day, the people have spoken.
No, I was just saying how with what happened in Newtown in the shooting.
Yeah.
You know, and I bet we say white men are voting, but maybe people are apathetic because things happen and are laws even changing about gun control and
apathy is unfortunately unfortunately a very big part of American democracy.
Have they changed anything? You know, have all those children died in vain?
Would we agree though that some people pay such little attention to what's going on in the country and the world that maybe it's a good idea that they don't vote?
Well,
they really don't know what's going on.
Landowners would vote.
That's true.
White men.
You know,
that's true.
Landowners are not just all white men. You had to own property.
Well,
we're talking about colonial.
And of course, no women voted because they didn't have the right. Only landowners, exactly.
I'm always sensitive, obviously, when you talk about the Newtown massacre because it's just so heartbreaking. But politically, there was a gun law that everyone had to vote on, and you had if we're going really local here now, you had state representatives that voted against that gun law.
2 of them, yeah.
Jan Geigler and Dan Carter.
All right, 3. Geigler, Carter, and Dave Scribner voted against it. Mike McLaughlin, on the other hand, and Mike McLaughlin he's no liberal.
Yeah.
This guy's about as conservative as you can find. He wanted to bring a law through the Connecticut Congress challenging President Obama's presidency.
Yeah, but he voted in favor of the gun law.
Exactly.
And so did John Shaban, and so did
most everybody in the area, and obviously most everybody in the whole Connecticut House and Senate voted for the gun law by a pretty sizable plurality. Voted for it, and I think it was a reasonable law.
But the point I'm trying to make is that those that voted against it were likewise reelected. They were. It wasn't as if.
It's true. What's that about?
And then to take it one step further.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we had this shooter up in Canada, not 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the one that went into Canadian Parliament.
Yeah, and so you have a crazy person with a gun, and thankfully you had a sergeant of arms, a good guy with a gun.
Yep.
Right.
And he shot that guy like the dog he was, and you didn't have a massacre.
Well, it was a sergeant at arms. It wasn't some schmuck on the street with a gun in a bar.
Okay, fine.
It was a guy that knew how to trained in how to handle a gun. He was the equivalent of a police officer.
Okay. But what they're trying to say is that there's different ways of viewing school security. There's different ways of viewing gun control.
Yeah.
And the equation, vote for this gun law means you want to protect children, is not necessarily true.
Maybe only 80% true.
Well, whatever. But my point, because we looked at this in Ridgefield quite quite closely. Obviously, after the Newtown thing, we invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we reconfigured the entrances and cameras and buzzers. And we also have school security officers.
Which is good. Good thing.
And I think that really when you get a gun-free zone, that's where, like the movie theater in Colorado, of all places, Fort Hood, military installations are gun-free zones. The Navy Yard in Washington, D.C., and schools across the country. And there have been 73 school shootings. They're gun-free zones. And the equation is those dastardly guns, if we can just get rid of the guns, it'll be fine. But it's actually not accurate. If you have guns in the hands of good guys, think Canada 2 weeks ago. You can try to avert some of these situations.
But it was a police officer, it was a trained police officer, not everybody carrying guns. Would you be in favor of 50 people walking into a movie theater, packing heat, carrying a gun?
It's funny you make that example.
Carrying a gun?
It's funny you make that example.
Because you would have had more people dead in that movie theater, wouldn't you have?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you had a trained former military, former policeman, guys that
in a darkened theater,
absolutely would have shot that guy dead like the dog
in a darkened theater.
Exactly how they did it in Canada. Exactly how they did it
in a darkened theater.
Yes, because the guy was standing up on the stage in a goddamn Batman outfit. It wouldn't be too hard to pick out who the bad guy was. Instead, you just get shot down like like lambs in a pen.
So why do you think these politicians were reelected? Because you said.
I think two reasons. I think one. America, one of the constitutional rights we have, it's the Second Amendment. We have the right to bear arms, and I think people, are serious about that. Secondly, I don't think it's as clear cut that vote for this and we'll stop school shootings. There's other schools of thought. I gave the example of Canada just now. And then finally, I think that when you pass a law whereby state law enforcement officials are literally coming to your door. And going, I'm going to confiscate your gun, and I'm going to confiscate your magazine of bullets. People are a little bit against giving the government so much power that they can come and confiscate your guns. And I think that's good. I mean, not to be melodramatic, but we just had an author on my show who wrote a book about the Jewish partisans during World War II in Lithuania, of all places. And it was none other than Himmler who said, when these Jews have guns, you can see what troubles they can cause.
Against tanks?
Well, yeah, they were fighting against the Wehrmacht, but they did a damn good job. They held down 100,000 Nazi troops towards the end of the war just by Russian and all these partisans and all that who had guns. But the first thing that they wanted is you obviously got to confiscate the guns. So the point is that it's a check. When the government fears the people, you have liberty. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. In America, we were based on the fact that the people are in charge. Look at the last election. And that we have the right to bear arms. And by and large, everyone that that is a gun-owning, a licensed gun owner in the state of Connecticut, these are not the people that are creating havoc in the cities or anything like that. They're executing or they are instituting their congressional or their constitutional right to bear arms.
In the 1930s, gangsters had machine guns. Machine guns were outlawed. Draw a line, if you will, of differentiation between a machine gun and the gun that kid killed 26 people in less than 3 minutes. I mean, isn't there a fairly decent parallel here? I mean, we outlawed machine guns. Why are we so reluctant to outlaw other, and I'll call them weapons of mass destruction. They're not bombs, they're not nuclear weapons.
Semi-automatic weapons.
But they are weapons of mass destruction in that you can kill 26 people in less than 3 minutes with a kid that's not really that good a shot to begin with. I mean, he just basically pepper sprayed everybody with bullets. And the average, every one of those kids and teachers had at least 3 bullet holes in them, at least 3. So this kid was spraying bullets like nobody's business. Why is that?
Wouldn't it have been great if we had a sergeant of arms at that school? A good guy with a gun that could have put an end to it? That's the only way you stop it.
Could have, but would he have?
Absolutely. Did you see that sergeant of arms in Canada? This guy shoots a guy out at a statue, comes running in, gets a couple shots off. The guy shoots him like the dog he is.
I think that's a good narrative example, but I don't think but I don't think it's representative of the picture overall. I don't think it's a representation.
Don't let the facts get in the way of your narrative, but that's exactly what happened, and we all saw it.
I mean, we can pick and choose. We can pick and choose. Okay, here's one for you. I know for a fact, and I know you'd be very willing to admit that if after the gun law was passed in Connecticut, if there had been a school shooting after then, a lot of people, not necessarily you, but a lot of people would have said, see, the gun law doesn't work. Would they have?
Well, not only that, but Connecticut already has the most stringent gun laws already.
Okay, that's fine.
Already. Absolutely.
Well, a lot of people would have said that. Would have said, see, the gun laws don't work. Then what's stopping me from making the rationalization? And I think it's a fair one. There haven't been any murders since then. Why can I not say, see, gun law worked? There haven't been any murders since then.
Well, I think you're talking about school shootings because there have been a whole lot of murders.
It cuts both ways. It cuts both ways. If one side can say, one side can say, see, there haven't been any, say, oh my God, there's another school shooting. The gun law didn't work. Why could I not say, see, there have not been any school shootings since then. Therefore, the gun law works.
Well, I think the case that the gun law is making is let's get rid of these bad guns, right? We want less guns because guns are bad things.
Not guns.
Guns. The special kind with the scary little handles on them and stuff.
The scary kind that you can kill 26 people in less than 3 minutes.
Okay, guess what?
Which hunters don't use anyway.
Guess what?
What?
Right now in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yeah.
Right.
Guess what's happening?
People are shooting.
No, there's a run on gun stores buying up guns.
Oh, that's what happened here. People were buying up semi-automatic weapons.
Thank you.
I knew people
when you say the government, Big Brother, is going to come down and infringe on your constitutional right to bear arms, because we've determined that these are scary-looking pistol-handled guns with lots of rounds. But this Saturday night special that can shoot off 6 rounds, that's not as scary-looking, and that won't kill you as bad as this one will kill you.
It won't kill as many people in as quick a time.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Well, when they say that, guess what happens? You might as well have full employment for the gun industry because people go out in droves and get guns. So the exact thing you're trying to avoid, you're actually pouring gas on the fire. If your idea is,
but if there are fewer murders after then, how is that pouring gas on the fire? The same thing is being accomplished. You're getting Connecticut. The murder rate is down. Now, whether that's because you can't buy this or that or the other weapon that you can kill 26 people in less than 3 minutes, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you can't say...
You know what it is? It might be counterintuitively that all these people have gone out and bought these guns, and that's why the murder rate's down, because no one wants to mess around. One more example. In Oklahoma, remember the guy who cut off the lady's head? Went Allah Akbar and cut off her head?
No.
You don't know about this?
No.
You gotta watch
And let me see, what religion did he belong to?
He's a Muslim. He's an extremist Muslim.
Okay, go.
Well, all the terrorists, recently are extremist.
Aren't there any such thing as extremist?
Timothy McVeigh. Go ahead.
Extremist Christians?
Yeah, I would call them the Ku Klux Klan, for example. Burning crosses and all. Absolutely.
Ku Klux Klan were
completely renounced by the Christian church. Absolutely said, you do not represent us. You are an apathy.
And don't Muslims do the same thing?
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. Their criticism of ISIS and all these other groups is deafening. There's no criticism whatsoever. They embrace these people.
I think you're maybe listening to other people that make that claim, but I don't think that's exactly true. In fact, I don't think that's true at all.
Really?
I know some people that happen to be Muslims. And they're just like everybody else, and they hate violence just as much as everybody else.
I would like to see them publicly renounce what's going on with all this cutting off.
How much? What do they have to come knock on your door and tell you about it?
No,
it's out there. They're doing it.
What about CARE?
They're doing it.
You
haven't seen it. I know you haven't seen it, but maybe Fox News is not showing it. Maybe not even CNN. Maybe even CNN's not showing it.
The Muslims
because it's not exciting. It's not. All the news stations all want excitement.
But my point, I didn't mean to stumble onto extremist Muslims, but my point is that in a nutshell, there was an extremist Muslim in Oklahoma, of all places, that worked at this place and cut off his ex-girlfriend's head while saying Allah Akbar right after they had all these beheadings, of the ISIS guys and stuff.
Yeah.
But how did that guy stop? Because he was going after the next person too.
He got shot by somebody.
He got shot by the owner of the business who had a pistol permit and had a gun and shot him like the dog he is. Are you seeing a pattern here?
Did he have? Now you say he had a pistol. Did he have? Did he have a weapon that you could kill 26 people in less than 3 minutes?
Well, it depends who has a pistol. If a Navy SEAL has a pistol, he can kill 26 people in a very short period of time.
Well, that's only because he's a Navy SEAL, and Marty is. Well, Marty knows about the Navy SEAls because he has a proud member of the Marines in his family.
The point is that trying to dictate this gun is okay, that gun is okay. Believe me, you get shot with a 12-gauge shotgun, you're just as dead as whatever.
Right. Would you go back to the 1930s if you could? Let's say we can all go in a time machine and we're going to go back to. We're going to do the time machine with George Powell, with the Yvette Mimieux and all that stuff, and the Eloy and the Moloch. We're going to go back
to... I have no idea what you're talking about, but go ahead.
You've never seen that movie, The Time Machine?
Oh, okay.
H.G. Wells.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Great movie, 1960-ish.
Okay, sorry.
So we go back in time, and we're at the moment when machine guns are outlawed, because at that point, it was a weapon of choice for gangsters.
Right.
It was getting a little crazy.
You're gonna rob a bank? They got a Tommy gun.
Yeah.
They got a machine gun.
Right.
Would we go back and say, well, why can't people have Tommy guns? What's wrong with that? Why is the government coming and taking away our Tommy guns? You see my comparison?
I do, and I think not everyone's allowed to have a bazooka. Not everyone's allowed to have a.
I think hand grenades are pretty much outlaws. Yeah.
So I get it. I think the government does have a role to play.
The question is where you draw the line, probably.
Kind of, but I guess I just opt for the government getting the heck out of my life.
But when it's doing something good,
whether it's
taxes.
But see, I don't know.
But it's doing something good,
but
though?
I would disagree with that. I would say that when you create these gun-free zones, you're not exactly creating a safe atmosphere.
I don't think you're making things any less safe. I really don't. Just because there are X numbers, you say 73 shootings in the last couple of years.
And you know what the common denominator with all those shootings?
Gun-free zones.
No, gun-free zones.
But
that's
there are
one.
no.
And
Are
the
there
second
no
one
murders?
is psychotic drugs too. These guys all had like Ritalin and all these kind of things.
It's true.
Yeah. They all had the same thing.
They're not looking at that.
Let alone violent video games and stuff like that. So, I mean, the NRA, especially in the liberal Northeast, the NRA and Second Amendment right people, they're an easy whipping boy. Anytime something was there a gun involved? They're the bad guys.
I don't think hunters. I don't include hunters in that because all my liberal friends think hunters are. And we've had conversations about Bambi, and about you had shot a deer, and because you're a hunter.
Yeah.
And you found that a lot of your friends were very angry at you.
Oh, when I put it on Facebook?
Because you shot Bambi.
Yeah.
I
it was
don't
kind of quite a reaction.
And I
look at this great buck I got. People want to know, what did you do?
And quite frankly, I would have been bothered about it just like you because I think most folks that are against these, what I'll call weapons of mass destruction, maybe you won't call them that, maybe I will, really have no problem with hunters. Matter of fact, even hunters that hunt deer in a state where there's an overabundance of deer.
Like Connecticut.
Just a huge overabundance of deer. Just a huge overabundance of deer. And if we don't thin the population out, then you're going to eventually have a population collapse. And you're going to have deer dying off in great numbers.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Which is worse, to have people... Brookfield. They may do this in Ridgefield now, but I know they do it in Brookfield. My favorite, bow hunters. Because what they do is they bring the bow hunter up in the tree, and he has the high-powered bow, and a deer goes underneath the tree, and ching, done, quick death. Then they cut the deer up.
Depending where you hit it, because they do.
Well, these guys
follow a blood trail.
Yeah, these guys, they don't. When you're in that kind of an angle, they get them quick. There's no. These are good seasoned bowmen.
Okay.
They're not going to have to shoot a second arrow. They're not going to have to shoot anything other than what they did. Done. They take the deer, they cut it up, They drain the blood out of it, whatever you call that.
Bring the meat to a homeless kitchen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a
So the
beautiful
town
thing.
of Brookfield will hire these mercenary
No,
killers?
they allow. No, they're not mercenaries. They're bow hunters.
We have the same thing in Ridgefield.
They're bow hunters.
They open up certain hunting areas. So it's really like they'll take a whole map of Connecticut and break it down into 2 square mile segments and number them. And depending on the deer contact with cars, Lyme disease percentages, all that stuff, they really dictate. Like Ridgefield, you can kill a deer, get another tag, and another tag, and you can just keep filling them. You know? Other places, the deer population isn't quite as intense. So it's really very well managed. And, no, but to your point, especially when something as horrific as Newtown happens, there needs to be a public discussion about it. And I think there's probably some middle ground, and I think it's interesting to have a case study because you have local politicians. If you were to tell me that there was a politician who represents Newtown and he voted against a gun law and he wouldn't be thrown out of office immediately,
I know
he wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and he was reelected.
I'm gonna put a theory forward because I think it has some validity. Maybe not as much. Maybe it wouldn't have overturned a 1,000-vote plurality, but I think I'm going to say that the majority of people that went to the poll on election day in the 2nd district, likewise in the 107th district with David Scribner, I'll bet the majority of those people who voted had no idea how either one of those representatives. I didn't know how Mike McLaughlin had voted.
Interesting.
Because we don't follow politics enough to know how people vote. Now, if everybody going to the poll had known that David Scribner or Dan Carter or Jan Gigler had voted the way they did, maybe the election might have turned out differently. Likewise, with Mike McLaughlin, maybe a lot of his supporters, if they had known that he voted for that gun law, maybe they would not have been as quick to vote for him, even though the only candidate running against him was a Working Families Party or Green Party, one or the other.
Well, all right, it's an ongoing debate, and
whether people are going to actually follow what's going on.
One thing we can all agree on, though, is we can never, as best as we can, allow something like what happened in Newtown to ever happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, it just as a society, we've got to come up with a better.
We do our best. We do our best to keep that from happening. And with that, thank you very much.
Yes.
Marty Heiser, good friend of Progressive Soup. Emily Volpintesta, the real star of the show.
Yeah, thanks, David.
And thanks for joining us. So, this.